I think in a idea process or in a thinking process or in a process of a concept, you need to be like 80 or 90% of your time in the backyard and then finish it off in the front yard. My name is Erik Kessels. I'm a designer and artist and from Amsterdam. And yeah, I work in a company called Kessels Kramer, which I set it up in 1996. And at the moment, yeah, we have an office in Amsterdam and in London. And yeah, I also strongly believe that I mix a lot of disciplines also in my practice, and that's also why I cross borders sometimes with art, with design, and yeah, those kind of things. I think nowadays to have a virtuous practice, I think it's very important to also kind of work with mistakes and errors. I think that I'm not talking now about the mistakes that you make during your life and during your private life, but more mistakes that you kind of have to make in your professional life, and that you have to do that by when you make ideas, when you make new innovations. And yeah, just let me explain it a little bit. I think that nowadays we are surrounded with a lot of machines, computers, applications that make no mistakes anymore. I mean, we just, yeah, the technology around us is just like more than perfect, and creates like a hyper perfection almost. So that means also that yeah, you really have to fight hard to look the other way to make a mistake, and sometimes you deliberately have to go into a wrong direction to find something new. So it's almost, you can compare it that you're in a car and your navigation is on, and you turn in the wrong direction, and then the person in the navigation is saying like turn around, and then you deliberately go on and on, even though when the person is getting crazy and says like you have to turn around, and but eventually he or she will shut up, and then yeah, you are in a kind of a weird new spot, metaphorically. And that's, you know, also how you have to push yourself to get into new grounds and into new areas where you, yeah, are still free to think, because yeah, like perfection is not really a very good starting point to make new ideas. I mean, perfection is maybe an end point, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, because, you know, like in design, for instance, something is very beautifully executed at a certain moment, but that is not the beginning of the process. The beginning needs to be much more raw and free, and nowadays you have to really, yeah, put a lot of things aside, and to make a clear road, so that you can think also without having all these perfections around you. Another thing which is maybe quite interesting to share is that you could also compare it to you know, like I often use this metaphor of the front yard of your house and the backyard of your house. So you have the front garden of your house and the backyard. So the front yard of your house is always quite perfect, you know, because people pass there, they pass the house, and they look at this front yard and they think like, wow, a fantastic family, and they have everything very nice in order, and it looks like fantastic. While often the backyard of everyone's house is like an enormous mess. You know, there is like unfinished projects. There's a fence been built around it, so people cannot look into your backyard. And this is also for creatives, and for a lot of creatives nowadays, their practice a little bit, because a website, your portfolio, the things you present, those are all like your front yard. While which is also good to show, of course, but for a lot of young people nowadays, they only stay in their front yard. They also make the ideas in their front yard. They never get into their own backyard. And that's, I think, very important, that you have to start in your backyard. You have to walk around there in your underwear and be free, and because there's a fence around it. But then there's a lot of unfinished projects there. There's like things that you can come up with ideas there. There is no pressure. You can make big mistakes because nobody sees it. And then when you eventually have found something there, you bring it through the house to the front, and then you show it and you finish it, and then you show it to everyone. But for a lot of people, yeah, also in the backyard is also your history and how you who you are, the person that you are, that's also built from your backyard. So I always promote very much that I think in a idea process, or in a thinking process, or in a process of a concept, you need to be like 80 or 90% of your time in the backyard, and then finish it off in the front yard. The way I work with photography has a lot to do also with reflecting on how we are living in the time we are living at the moment. So, I mean, the consumption of things at the moment, and the common consumption of many things like food and products and is enormous. But for instance, the consumption of images is also bizarre. I mean, we live in almost in the renaissance of imagery, and so it's almost like we see nowadays we see more images before lunch than somebody in the 18th century saw in their whole lifetime. And so it is bizarre how that has also done something to us. So because I think people nowadays have become also editors. I mean, there's so many new information coming in. Emails, text, sound, images every day, that you have to really shift that. Otherwise, you get crazy. So you have to really decide what you want to see, what you want to listen to, and constantly there's new things coming in. And in my case, what I also like to do is that, and that's why I look a lot at, I work a lot with found images, with images I find on free markets, or images that I find online, because I think that it's almost like a recycling of these images that are already there. So, I mean, there are so many images around that haven't been looked at yet, or that haven't been used yet. So why would I make a new one myself when I can use one that is still there? And what I like to do then also, because I believe in that, is that I think I think at a certain moment, everything is already photographed. Like you can. I mean, there's a lot of memes and a lot of stereotypical ways of photographing that you find online, and people copy each other constantly in that sense. But I think that when you maybe pause at one image, for instance, you can find the whole story behind this one image that is not even told yet. So I think that in the future, the story behind the photograph is almost more important than the photograph itself. And that you can call that also a recycling of images, because these images that I use and that I repurpose for something else, I kind of reappropriate them. They are once used for something else. But what I do is just like I kind of invite people to look at it in a different way. And in a way, that is also quite interesting when you look at the recycling of materials and to make new products for, or I mean, the circularity of that, and that is almost a similar thing, not really, but I mean, I I pay a lot of attention on those kind of on that kind of practice, and for me that's quite important. So and myself also. I mean, because there is so much production in things and so much consumerism that I'm also sometimes I'm thinking, when was the last time I bought a new thing, so because I think in this society now you can also take a choice that you buy vintage clothing or repurposed clothing, or the same you can do with products as well. So that is quite nice, I think. For me, it's very fascinating sometimes, like also how people photograph their life, like because when there was analog photography, maybe on average people had 5 or 6 family albums, and those were albums that maybe once or twice a family member just looked at it, but for the rest it was very private, like and now the role of an image is totally changed. Like images there are not there to keep anymore. They have a very short life cycle. They're just to share, and they are just become almost like promotional material, like almost family propaganda, like so. Because yeah, when and also Instagram channels, they have become personal propaganda channels almost, like there's millions and millions of propaganda going on in that sense. And yeah, what I find fascinating about the family albums often is also that you see certain patterns in there. Those are patterns that you see a lot now as well, still with digital photography and with the photography online. So those patterns, they haven't changed, but so that is like first holiday together, marrying together, getting the first baby, going on holidays, and then for a long time nothing, and then going again on holiday without the children at a certain moment. So that is then 5 or 6 albums. But I find it's bizarre to see, like, especially with analog photography, like how in how many pictures they documented their whole life, which was often quite a little amount of pictures. While now we need 1,000 and 1,000 times more pictures to document our life. Oh, the only thing is that we don't keep them often anymore. So yeah, there's a lot of yeah. For me, it's also almost like a kind of visual archaeology that I do, where I try to, and it has not only to do with analog photography, but I can see that everywhere, and that is also yeah, for me it is really it works really that when I make a photograph myself, I don't see the meaning of that, or I don't see the purpose why for me it's much more interesting to look at others and to look at and to kind of analyze the behavior or the certain fetish or fascination they have in their images. With the project Bookworm that I did, which is actually like a book in a plexiglass case and then slowly eaten by worms. Yeah, it has like a few different meanings. First of all, the idea would be that this is like a performance, almost like a performance done by the worms, but that this installation, so the cabinet with the glass case and the book in there, that would, in our mind, I did this project together with Thomas Mailander, but in our mind, this would be also would stand in a library or in a book collection, or in an area where there's like enormous amount of books and maybe very valuable books. So it would be almost yeah, also a very dangerous thing to have in the middle of this collection, because yeah, these worms, they are a nightmare for books, of course. So so that is more the one thing. On the other hand, Thomas and I made together this book, which is called Bookworm, the book, and so it has maybe 400 pages, and then but on every page is also material that we find very photographs and images that we find very fascinating for this time also. So it also shows the banality of images that you find online, that you that we collected over time with the amount and the banality of images that we live with, and yeah, we also offer these images almost like an appetite for the worms to kind of enjoy those images and interact with those images. So because there's also some other images of worms in the book, so the worms can see themselves. They can visit. There's like some cooking course images, so they can eat while they can watch the cooking course. So there's a lot of it's also kind of a ironic and playful installation, and like there's a. It's funny that there's this because I saw you sent me the reference with the chair you made, but I think that is in your case it's maybe much more a reference to the life and death and life of that chair, or so. In our case, it's maybe more done in a very playful and ironic way. Also. And also very much then in fact about the consumption of images, where I was also talking about before. We consume images like on an enormous with an enormous speed, but we don't look at them anymore in a way. This is also playing with that metaphor a little bit. I think that my profession, or the different professions that I have, like. I think that we are in a period of transition also now, or quite a complex and very nervous period also. I mean, on one hand, for instance, professionally, when you look at design, advertising, graphic design, those disciplines, they change a lot because of course that like a lot of it is digitized, a lot of it is almost virtual, and the physical craft of the work is often you have to be careful that doesn't disappear, but in many cases it's quite threatening that the physical act of making something with your hands, or making an idea also physically, and even a craft of designing is very much changed over the years. So you see, for instance, in design or in architecture, that the renderings that are made to present the proposal they are so unbelievably perfect and so good that you wish that something would look like that, but it's almost that they look much better than the end result, while they were meant to be like a sketch. They were meant to be once like a proposal, but at the moment the perfection of these renderings are so good, with light, with people in it, with that the end result can only be a disappointment, but that is something you have to be careful about. And also other things is that, for instance, you see in sports, like for instance Formula One, if you look at a news cover or the coverage of that the whole coverage looks almost like a computer game, while the computer games itself are not computer games anymore. They are almost realistic. So these things, they are very close to each other. It's almost like they're almost one. That becomes, it's very strange. And then the other thing is in the in art, there is of course also quite a lot going on. Like a lot of institutions yeah, I have to be very careful now about the diversity of programming, of staff that they have, which is a very good thing, of course, and it's will be yeah, there will be also a change after time, and there will be a transition in that. But yeah, like sometimes it's also quite important to look at not, you know, because sometimes things also become a little bit politically correct, you know, and we are in that, we are in a very nervous time where, you know, like things are some artists are being cancelled with their work. Well, yeah, I think in the end, art should always communicate a certain friction, and there should be something happening when people look at art. And I mean, I heard recently, I heard, I saw an interview of this Lawrence Weiner, who is an artist from America, and he said, like, I am not brought into this world like when you have a work today and you have the afternoon off and you go to the museum and you see my work. I'm not brought to this work to ruin your afternoon, you know, like because that's not what I want to do. No, I have to fuck up your whole life. That's where I need to ruin your whole life. That's where I'm. That's why I'm an artist, you know. Like, and he means that metaphorically, but I think it's also yeah, like art should also make a leap into new ways of thinking, new ways of looking, and yeah, that is very important. I think that's also progression in society is done by those kind of bolder statements. You know, if they can be either in art or in innovation or in, you know, you see that when there is always a breakthrough in a certain innovation, that was from the beginning never like a compromised thing. It was just like there was a big gap between the old and the new, and that I think is very important. But yeah, at the moment there is a lot of nervousness going on, and in that also in the cultural world, and but hopefully these are like yeah, that the artist and the art world will kind of regain confidence in that again, and then and then be also yeah, like kind of reckless and spontaneous and making nonsense or making no sense. You know, that is very important, I think, for those, and that's anyway for creativity very important. You know, like you need to be totally different. You know, like and if no one, also when you are creative and no one hates your work, there's also no one who loves it. You know, that is the definition of good work. When nobody hates it, no one loves it. You know, like if you make work that's middle of the road, then yeah, that's not creativity. You know, like and it's not innovation. So then I find that important. So yeah, the question if we are in if I think your discipline or the work you or the profession you work in always changes in that sense. But yeah, now also with COVID-19, we have been kind of isolated. Also, I mean, a lot of the cultural things stopped happening. And I think that we need to, you know, like after when this is over and we all have a vaccine, then we need to vaccine ourselves again with a lot of creativity, you know, like or I hope that there is like a then a virus coming which is called creativity, you know, like and that is I think that is hard to regain that, because for real creative things or real stupid things or real things that make no sense, nobody is waiting for that. You know, it's almost like a bonus or an extra that comes on top of a moment where things are going well, and where you have like I think like when you are mentally in a good health and you are happy and you are yeah, you are, then you have a lot of space in your head for creativity. You know, when you're sad or depressed nervous or feared, then that it's not the best. Those are not the best moments for creativity, I think, because real creativity, I think, is also very decadent. Like it's quite, which is positively meant. I mean that positively, but it's almost like the cherry on the cake, but then even more cherries on the cake. That it becomes almost too much, and that's yeah. But we have to fight for that. Like and also there need to be a lot of people who need to be open for that. Then because at the moment there is not a lot of that openness, but there is a lot of online shaming, online bullying, yeah, yeah, often this negative narrative online. There's a lot of spectators for that, and a lot of people that find negative things almost more interesting than positive things. But I hope that changes one time. When I think about a habit that I can change and that I can play with every day, that is just like, it's funny that we live in a very material world, and there is a lot of technology around us. There's a lot of very negative things with a lot of wars and poverty and things like that. But I think one of the things that everybody has is that yeah, any moment of the day you can come up with an idea. There is no, that has nothing to do with materialism, and that's something that is really about yourself, and that's what you have in you, and everybody has it in them, but yeah, you just have to open it up, or you have to just knock at the door of where your thing is, where your yeah, where your facility is hidden, to come up with ideas, like, and I find that like a privilege, that I can play with that. I can play with one day not depending on it, and the other day totally following my intuition and not being afraid for it to maybe fail or don't find anything, and sometimes it comes automatically. So yeah, for me it's very interesting that I can kind of juggle and play with yeah, with the fact, like how I can come up with a new idea, or and I think that also the more technology is taking over our societies, I think the more important yeah, because that personal ideas become more, or personalities with their people that that think different and act different in a certain way. Yeah, you can't. Those are things that you can't produce, like they I think that yeah, I do also a lot of workshops, and they're called like personality before portfolio, and this has a lot to do also that the personality of creatives and how different you are, or how different you can act, becomes more and more important, because the portfolio, they start to look all like each other. They start to look very similar. That's also with the websites of certain companies. Everybody looks at each other, and it becomes one big mash of stuff, while a person with a very strange background and a strange fetish and a weird eating habit with a very strange hobby, that cocktail becomes then something suddenly very, very interesting, and they can come up with a very good idea. Like I find that in the future, I think that will be more and more important, and that is something that I'm very positive about. That the more we depend on others, or on technology and everything, the more it becomes important what a single person means, or what a group of people achieve, things like that. I think what is very important in life also is that in the everyday life that you do, that you I mean, of course, you need to have a certain routine, like to do certain things, but I think also one of the most important things is to kind of really avoid the routine. Like that's what I try to do, but almost unconsciously I avoid routine. So I remember when I was going to secondary school or to art school, I had to take the train every morning at the same time. So I took the bike from home, parked it at the train station. I was on the platform, and every day I saw the same people waiting there. So yeah, at a certain moment I almost became it overwhelmed me. So I was like, what the fuck shall I do about this? Because so then I started to do different routes to end up to the station. I started to come too early, started to come too late. So every time I was trying to find a new way how to approach, maybe this is a metaphor, but how to approach the day, that day in life. And but it's not. I mean, that's what you have to do, I think. On the other hand, I think that we need some routines, and also to load our battery. Sometimes you have to step into a routine, but for like for creativity, you really need to avoid that routine, and that's that is very, very important, I think, because otherwise it. I mean, another thing which I also find maybe quite important is maybe not so much to do with this question, but I think that, for instance, also when you start your career and when you are starting your own business or whatever, I think saying no to things is also something very important. Which is very strange because people never understand that, but because they, when you get like a job offered which is like a lot of money, or you I think when you intuitionally and your intuition says like, yeah, I don't know about this job, but okay, it pays well, so let's do it. But yeah, then you should always say no. Like that's very important, because you're as good as your last few works that you have done, and if you go on and on with taking on work that is not your passion, and that you can't put a lot of this passion in, then you should not do it. You should be very true to yourself also, and be also a bit stubborn. You should be very honest about even to certain, sometimes to clients or to institutions. When you are honest and you say like, listen, I thought about it, but I cannot do it because it's not for me at the moment, then they also respect that. But when you do it half and you start a project and you don't like it and you become into conflict, then it doesn't help anyone. So I mean, saying no to things is, funny enough, much more important than saying yes. So because we tend to say yes quite a lot, and but the no's are more important in your career also, and in your work that you do.